go. I bet she's in here waiting to get in.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
This is Chris. I'm the village manager. We had to do a little bit of tweaking with Zoom, so if you just give it a second, we should have everything back up and running.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, could you unmute the village clerk Zoom, please?
How's that? Fayola, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can, sir.
All right,
Oh.
fantastic. Well, thank you for being patient with us and working through getting into the right room. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Mayor, and all the councils and all the individuals who are in the room and online.
Good evening. So Commissioner Kennedy let us know that you wanted to talk about the resolution that we have here before us. Is that right?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I apologize. My mayor was on, but unfortunately he had to log off. My name is Fayola Dalika. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for Mayor and Council for the City of North Miami out of Mayor Alex Desame's office. I do thank you for the opportunity, Commissioner Kennedy, for allowing us to be on and to say thank you in solidarity and standing with the resolution that was passed in our city, I believe about 2 weeks ago, in addressing the comments, the derogatory comments that were made by Mr. Trump, his VP candidate, and of course, Elon Musk and others who are making comments that are not true about the Haitian community as regards to eating pets. As you know, our community, the city of North Miami, is one of the largest Haitian American populations in South Florida, in the state, as well as in the nation. And it affects all communities. Yes, it may be derogatory statements towards the Haitian American community, but as Dr. Martin Luther King says, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And so we thank you for Commissioner Kennedy for bringing this resolution to your council, to your commission, to stand in solidarity with the Haitian community and the city of North Miami in regards to dismissing these lies. As many of you may or may not know, the contributions that Haitians have made since the beginning of American history, the Louisiana Purchase, the city of Chicago is named after a Haitian. In Savannah every year, which actually on the 10th, I think it's the 10th through the 16th of October, there is a monumental celebration that takes place about Haitians arriving to the United States in Savannah. So we have made great contributions throughout this history. And of course, currently we have many elected officials and inventors, professionals, people who are of Haitian descent. I myself am first generation Haitian American. My parents are from Haiti. And so we thank you so much for this opportunity and allowing us to stand to speak on this comment, on this item on your agenda, as well as standing in solidarity with all our community and all of the Haitian diaspora locally and at large, as well as standing for injustice.
Fayola, thank you for the introduction, the background, all the very valuable information.
You're welcome.
I'm in support of this. Certainly, it's certainly in support of the Haitian community and you as our neighbor. Correct.
I'm sorry. And we have a significant Haitian population of our own. And if we had no Haitians in our community, I would still support this because it's not the American way to step on someone's throat. It's just anti-American, and it's certainly not in keeping with the values of Biscayne Park. So that's why I asked this to be brought here tonight. I don't think it's necessary to read this entire resolution into record. Fayola just did a beautiful job sort of condensing it down for us. And I would make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I will proudly second that motion.
All right, so all in favor of the resolution before us?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, can she hear us? Oh, and we have the mayor.
Oh, there's the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Well, if you had just tuned in, I think maybe just 15 seconds ago, the Biscayne Park Commission just voted in favor of adopting the resolution in support of the Haitian community, in support of and also in support of you as our neighbors and in our the Haitian community here in Biscayne Park.
Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, from the entire community, as our neighbors. We want to thank you again, we are truly, truly grateful for this, and everyone on the commission. I know Ms. Delica presented it, and our commission will forever be grateful for the entire commission, and we are good neighbors. Thank you.
Of course, Mayor, we're happy to support you and you too as our neighbor to our north and the Haitian community as well. So thank you both for passing this in your community and also for speaking with Commissioner Kennedy and for Commissioner Kennedy for bringing it to our attention. It's certainly important and we support it wholeheartedly.
Well, I didn't have a chance to talk to the mayor today. Mayor, it's Commissioner Kennedy. How are you?
I'm
spoke
great,
with-
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
I spoke with Fayola today and she did a great job getting all of this coordinated. Apologize for the delay. And now that we've said hello to you as a group, we're here the first Tuesday of most months and we'd love to have you come sit in the audience and join us for our little show.
I will do that. I'll do my best. You got it. Anytime. We neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a good evening. And Fayola, thank you as well. Have a good evening.
Oh, thank you all so much. Glad to be great neighbors to a great city. Take care.
Likewise. Right.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, that was good. So we are moving on. All right, so that concludes the presentations. We move that up. We'll open up for public comment at this time. We'll start here in the Village Hall. And just as a reminder, it's limited to 3 minutes. And please provide your name and address before you provide comment. Thank you. We made it.
Anyway, thank you. Janie Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. Item 11A, the landlord registration fee. If I read it correctly, it's only $25. I would ask, and if you don't mind me taking a pause, Linda, didn't you present I thought so. Linda presented some information last month showing other cities charging considerably more. I think we need to consider staff time, research. I mean, that wouldn't seem to even come close to covering it. The budget process, what can we really call it a process this year, was about as disjointed and disorganized.
Jenny, sorry, I can't hear you.
Was about as disjointed and disorganized as I've ever seen. So Ryan, Mac, thank you both for your agenda items. I think you're proposing some important things, and I hope you guys will go through with those. Okay, you cut the millage by 1/10 last week. Now, that's a really good, feel-good optic, but what it doesn't do is attack the systemic problem that, Mac, you've brought up in past years. We fund for something, and we don't do the something.
Mhm.
And until such time as you guys, as a collective body, start expecting action and accountability, well, we can just keep cutting the budget. That's actually kind of the simple thing. But people want to see progress. One of the things I did watch the meeting on YouTube the other night. One of the things I heard that was just absolutely appalling, there was money set aside to take down certain Australian pines that were viewed to be a liability. And the statement was made that that didn't happen because some people would be upset. So we're going to hold our city to the potential for significant liability should any of them go down, should they cause damage or worse. death or injury, or even inconvenience like one did a few years ago on Griffin, went down to a water main with it. That's not how you run a city. We've got to focus on what's best for the whole, and we've got to expect administration and employees to follow through on it. And you did take the lien one off, am I right? The lien item?
Yep.
Okay, next one. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
JD.
you.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I would first like to ask permission. I've timed what I had to say several times, and I think I'm just slightly over 3 minutes. And I would like to ask permission to do that
I think
in case
get
I.
started. I think you should be okay, but go ahead.
So today officially marks 100 years of surrealism. And I want to talk about the surrealism and sometimes schizophrenic-like behavior of Biscayne Park. This has been going on throughout the 45 years that I have lived here. Another longtime resident joked and said maybe it's something in the North Miami water. Residents wanted more police presence, and then they complained that there were too many police cars. Residents wanted more code enforcement, but you all couldn't come up with a contract to keep Doreen, and in 6 months, our very best code officer that we've ever had will be gone. We lost Mario, and more recently, we lost a deputy clerk and a public works director, all to communities who paid more. Our roads are falling apart. As you talked about this evening, we still have no parking at the rec center. We do not have lights at the log cabin when we leave here at night. And yet the main topic of discussion for the last couple of meetings seems to be the pickleball courts. And Commissioner Holland, I'm going to address this to you. I'm sorry, perhaps you had a bad day, but last Thursday you came storming into Village Hall, yelling at the top of your lungs and demanding that something be done about the people crossing the median in front of your house. You demanded that something be done immediately. You threatened people, and you said you would even take matters into your own hands.
That last part was true, and I'm not gonna interrupt you here. I'm gonna clarify. I was not yelling at the top of my voice. You want to see me yell at the top of my voice? Keep lying about me. I'll say that. Second thing I'll say,
John,
by taking matters into my own hands, what I meant was that I will put plants there. I'll
John.
put a post there. No. No.
we have a moment, we have a section for replies.
That's true.
We do.
Right.
So let's just let it, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that when my water meter, which happens to be in the median, was broken for the 4th time, the Public Works Department put a very large landscape boulder in that spot so that they couldn't drive through there. And at the other end of my street, we have 4x4, somewhat like a fence in the area to keep people from driving across. So, but in my opinion, and I'm not the only one, that all the staff were talking about it, that they were extremely upset by the tone of your voice and how loud you were. A few residents have complained about the poor services and bad attitude of staff, but you don't listen to staff and you haven't witnessed the other side of the story where residents and contractors are totally belligerent. They're insulting and even threatening, especially when they don't get the answers that they want. And meanwhile, hundreds of positive interactions that have been completed are totally ignored. We had several new drains installed, but no one followed up on the work that was done. On the 113th Street one, there's one that is still too high and it's in the wrong place so that water can't drain unless it runs uphill. On 115th Street to the west of me, the whole area was repaved after a new drain was installed. It's been less than 2 years and the road is already deteriorated. I'm also deeply offended, Mr. Commissioner Mack, when you talk about us longtime residents who pay less taxes. Perhaps you think we're not entitled to the same amenities or that we should have a lesser voice. I think everyone unrealistically expected the new manager to finish all the projects and fix all the ills of our community when there have been issues that have existed for years and years and years. But until we have a competitive salary to offer, things are probably not going to change. David Raymond even said so on Nextdoor, and thought that you could have come up with another $50,000 to make the package more attractive. Every year, I hope things will get better, but it seems like we take one step forward and we take two back. I will forever remain hopeful, but I am worried about our community. When I walked into Village Hall into the log cabin this evening, and I saw Al Childress here, I thought maybe my prayers have been answered. I've known him for many, many years, and I think he would do an outstanding job for us. So there really is hope. Thank you.
We have any other public comment before we move into next section? Looking on Zoom, yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, Bob Anderson, 11905 on 11th Place. This has to do with 12F, and I'm glad to hear that the commission is finally moving forward on something. Not that this commission, but just plain being done. Because a few years ago, we hired a company to go ahead and give us recommendations on parking and surfaces, and they drew up plans and everything else. We spent the money for it. And like most of the times, we go ahead and spend money getting plans and recommendations. They're immediately put on the shelf and forgotten about. And I'm glad this commission has decided to go ahead and pull that out of the shelf and get moving on it and getting it done. And I commend you guys for doing that. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands up on Zoom, let's go ahead and move into the reply. And thank you everyone who provided their public comment, both here and on Zoom. Is there any commission reply to public comment at this time?
I will address it. Thank you. That was very well said, Linda. And I couldn't agree with you more. There is a lot to be done. It's a fresh start we have. I'm hopeful as well. That's why I'm still here. But there's a lot pending, and we've seen it pending for years, to your point. I think we've made progress in some areas. To your point, we sort of clean with one hand what we do with the other, because it takes a strong manager to do. It just starts from that. To your point on salary, I think we'll get to the discussion. We'll see how the market responds when we put those sort of the job posting out. We'll see what we get, and we'll get the conversation. But and we'll see again, what the market says. But yeah, I take a lot of responsibility of what you're saying. I want to say that in 2 years, I would have loved to just tackle so much, and really nothing's moved. It's really disappointing. But here we are, so that's the job. We'll find someone that has the ability to push things forward, and I appreciate you staying hopeful, and hopefully with a smile through some of the circumstances that's happened in the Village Hall. I really appreciate every piece of energy that I see when I go, and I hope it remains through the process. So thank you.
In the interest of time, I agree with most of what you said, and I will concede that I was very upset that day. In addition to having the water main on our street break 2 or 3 times, not being able to use water else, it also creates a nuisance for me personally, and I was extremely upset. There were other things going on that day that might have factored into my reaction to seeing someone yet again put my water main at risk and drive across the median in a big F-150. But since this is public and I don't want it to be replayed, I will spare my family member the embarrassment of what was told to me and why I was possibly in a different state of mind. However, it doesn't change the fact that, to your point, We talk about things and nothing happens. I've been there for 22 years, and I've talked to multiple police officers about it. I've talked to code about it, and I finally decided to pull a Steve Jobs. Every now and again, you got to raise your voice a little bit. You got to get people's attention, and I think I got some people's attention. I got a cop there. Now, I don't know if his conversation with my neighbors actually accomplished anything. Probably not. So when I get off this board, and trust me, or the commission, and trust me, I'm counting the minutes. I go back to Parks and Parkways. My number one priority is going to be to work with Danielle and the other people on that board who have great energy, and we're going to do something about these medians. And if by the end of the year, my water main breaks again because we can't get anything done, sorry guys, I'm going to dig some holes. I'm going to put some plants there, and I'm going to make someone come along and rip them up. Because if you can't come along and do something about it, I'd be stunned to see you come along and do something about that. So I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. All right. I agree with you most of the way. Apologize if I startled some people, but we're not holding these things because Steve Jobs was a nice guy 100% of the time. He was a nice guy maybe 80, 90% of the time. That was some of my 10% time, and I hope I lit a fire under some people.
Linda, I just want to say thank you, as you're one of our long-term volunteers that you just don't see in government. And as a fellow government employee, I understand very well how you have to deal with sometimes with, I'm not talking about you, Commissioner, I'm just saying in general, when you're talking about staff and their frustrations, you have to deal with people from all different attitudes, and sometimes it's very difficult, and it's something that as a public employee, you have to just walk away and just with a smile on your face. And so I want to just say thank you for your passion, and thank you for remaining hopeful for Biscayne Park. And I think this commission all wants to see change, and it's time for us to start acting on that want.
Thanks, everyone. Do we have no other commission reply going forward? Let's go ahead and get into our reports and make some progress here. So let's just start with 8A. Do we have any questions about the code compliance report right now? Hearing none. Any questions, finance? Considering we just.
Well,
The whole lot
Paul's not here.
No.
But I communicated with him today and I asked him when we would get the final budget. I've not experienced a budget process like we just finished where I don't have a clean copy of the budget at the end of it. Normally, we're passing what is a clean copy on the agenda. So he said Sharon has been out, and when she gets in, he's hoping by the end of the week, we'll all have a clean copy of the budget. I plan to go through and double check everything, because not that I don't trust any specific person, but I've just never experienced something as strange as passing a budget that had 5,000 substantive changes in it, and everyone scratching on a piece of paper and adding up to make sure we're where we're supposed to be. That's bonkers, you know? So I hope every one of you takes the opportunity to go through the budget and make sure that it is what we thought we passed. I also specifically asked him when that finance person, that extra part-time finance person will be starting. He said they're going to use someone internally. I don't want to speak for him, but this is what he told me. They're going to use someone internally until they hire someone specifically for this job for us. And he already delineated the first couple of steps that we'll take involving interacting with staff and blah, blah, blah. To the conversation we'll have later on tonight about the budget process, I'm going to be asking that we have Paul and that person come in here. So our desires for the next budget season are made very clear. We did that last October and it didn't happen. So this year I'm hoping that we can all hold them to that and this new manager to it as well. So I just wanted to fill you in on that. I am still worried about the budget.
When I went in on Friday, I was asking the same question, and Sharon was out, and we'll get it when we get it. And it's like, okay, well, I had my notes ready, and I will have my notes ready.
Exactly.
If there's no other questions on finance, we'll go ahead to legal. I know we have a memo on the building department items.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I'm just going to be very brief.
Yeah, please.
So, and we've discussed this before, there is a statute that takes effect with regards to building permits approval process starting January 1st. And there's some very specific timelines with regards to the approval process. I provided the memorandum, to the manager so he can make sure that the village's policies are in place. I spoke with the building official this afternoon, and essentially part of this move over from one software to the other with regards to the permits and that was discussed earlier. that should take care of this. Your building clerk is a CAP employee, and when they're checking the applications and the permits for completeness and sufficiency, they're then making the determination as to where the next step is in the approval process. So they're going to ensure if it has to go to the Planning and Design Board for approval on a zoning issue, that it gets there within the required timeframes. And if the building official has to do any approvals with regards to the Florida Building Code, in order to approve the permit, they're going to make sure through the software and their own tracking that it complies with the statute. So that's all I have on the issue.
May I ask a question? Because Brad and I talked about this and it's still confusing to me. I just want to know, in terms of an application being complete and sufficient, does that include the planning board approval?
No.
Does
So-
not include.
Oh,
okay.
The completeness of, because if you look at this, there's two deadlines. The first deadline is that upon the village receiving an application for a permit, the village within 5 business days has to notify in writing the applicant as to whether or not the permit is complete and sufficient, or there's deficiencies and what the deficiencies are, which triggers a time period in which the applicant then has to fix any of the deficiencies, a time limitation and time period in which the village has to then approve it and re-review it. So the approval process, whether it be through a zoning, through planning and design, or an approval process of the permit application through the building official, that's when the timeframes that we're talking about, 30, 10, 60, whatever they might be for the particular project, that's when those kick in and start. So to answer your question, Commissioner Kennedy, once the building clerk makes the determination that the application is sufficient and complete, the time frame for approval starts to tick.
Okay, but that approval is what includes the planning board. So then the planning board has 30 days to
30 or 60 or whatever the
but
time.
we don't have any, we wouldn't have any examples of 60.
I think if it's
It would
over-
always be number one. So
Well, two, I mean, you could have a structure, a single family structure.
maybe we could, but it's very, very unlikely.
500
But
square feet.
Number one is what we're looking at. So for 30 business days, in other words, planning and zoning, the planning board has to hear this case within 30 days and give their approval.
Correct.
But if there are questions, it can get kicked back, and then other things come into play about how much more time they have to comply and get additional information.
Depends. I mean, also the applicant can waive these timeframes if upon agreement. You just cannot make a condition of the approval a waiver of the timeframes. But yes, the simple answer to your question is yes. The planning and design board would have to make a decision to either approve with modification, or deny the permit within 30 days from the building clerk determining that it was complete and sufficient.
So in terms of the internal process here in the village, we need to make sure that once the building clerk says it's complete and sufficient, that it gets onto and properly noticed and the owner notified, because we have two of these opportunities within that 30 days ostensibly.
Correct.
Okay, so we got to the new manager needs to really make sure we understand that process, or that's what we'll trip over. Because there have been many times when that's not happened. There have been many times we haven't made that. Things haven't been put on agendas, people haven't been noticed, but now there are repercussions if that happens.
All right, thanks, Brad. Thanks, Commissioner. Do we have any other questions about the memo?
No.
Okay.
Two other things for the attorney really quickly. Brad, can you give us an update on the county meeting noticing requirement?
Yeah, so I know when we last met, I had indicated it was going to be on the agenda, the agreement, the ILA between the county and the village for public notices and legal notices. It'll be on for November. It's prepared. I didn't transmit it to the clerk on time for it to get on tonight's agenda.
Okay, and I had a resident contact me and ask about the status of the hold harmless agreement that she is being required to sign, and she was told by Chris that a new one is coming.
So I had provided Chris with and Doreen with some proposed changes to that language. I would have to defer to them as to where that is in the process.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, is there any update on that?
I don't have an update at this time.
What was that?
He said he does not have an update at this time. Okay. Any other questions for Brad before we move on? No, hearing none. All right. Lobbyist, part of the discussion later on, but we don't have David with us, so I'll move on. Parks and Rec, any questions about the Parks and Rec report?
Is Isa up there? No?
I don't believe so.
I was hoping to hear something about the foundation project and how that's coming along in there.
All right, if there's no questions, Parks and Rec, let's go on to police. Any questions for police? And we have the chief here with us.
I have a couple of things. I'm sorry, is the chief going to saying something first, or are we just asking questions?
I mean, and Chief, unless you have anything, I think we'll just go ahead and open up to the commission if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
I have a bunch of stuff, and I'm editing my list as I go here. So, can you tell us when we budgeted some things for you in the fiscal year that starts today? The new traffic force, body cams, and the grant training. Can you give us an idea when we'll see progress in those areas, specifically the traffic force?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We should have both the traffic officers. We had some internal reserves that have asked to take the positions. Their backgrounds are going, or their personnel files are going to the manager to review. So by this Friday, we should have hopefully the 2 traffic units established with the start date of more than likely next week, or by the 15th, I would say by far, in case they have to give a 2-week notice. The body cameras we have set up. We have the server up. We're waiting on the last couple parts that have to be done with the cloud with our IT Loxia. So we should again also have the body cameras ready for issue to start utilizing by probably about the 15th also. And the grant class, we have designated the individual that's going to go. It's going to be the administrative captain, George Rosaro. So he's looking into the enrollment process at UCF to get into the class.
Okay, you're on it already. We're only one day into the new fiscal year. Like that. I would love on your report, which by the way, thank you for adding onto the report the code responses that we discussed at the last meeting. I appreciate seeing that on there. I was surprised how few there were, but I appreciate seeing it there. I would love to see these items that we budgeted for fiscal 25 for you, see updates on them as they progress and until they're completed, just so we know they're moving along. I really didn't expect to get such a great report today on day one, so that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I had questions about traffic citations. I'm not going to bother asking you now. The vehicles for this traffic force, I'm calling it the wrong thing, I know. Will those vehicles be identified differently than regular police vehicles? Is there a benefit to doing that? I feel like I've seen in other communities, some cars and officers identified differently, and I wondered what the benefit of that was.
Yes, sir. It's definitely a deterrent. We've already spoke with the graphic company. They are coming back out to finish the last few vehicles that were not graphic, and they are adding a traffic enforcement unit to those assigned vehicles.
Awesome.
And that should act as hopefully a little bit more of a deterrent for people to realize that we are traffic oriented.
Yeah, I kind of think that's a nice psychological thing for the residents to know we did something, right? And also for people to know, uh-oh, there he is. There he or she is. So go get him. And I just want to say nice work. When I read your report, I read about the mail carrier that had a cardiac incident that your team assisted with, and also a resident who had a mental health crisis, and you guys stepped in and assisted that person until EMTs got there. So I just want to say nicely done in that regard.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, I don't think the Rest Commission knows, but I passed along a request to the chief this month about attending Matter Academy Biscayne's Coffee with a Cop event, which is going to happen tomorrow. And the chief graciously accepted the invitation. And so your officers hopefully we'll see you now having a cup of coffee tomorrow during child drop off. I have a request. They a last minute requested Commander Ginger attend. Would that be possible?
I believe so. Yes, sir. I will make sure she's there.
Chief, is she bringing this week?
Sir,
Chief, is she in training this week?
she is in training, but I believe she should be able to attend the morning to stop by and see.
Thank you so much, Chief. I'm sure the kids will appreciate seeing Commander Ginger in the morning. I'll bring dog
Yes,
treats.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions for the chief on his report?
I would like to say just the one comment on the report that we didn't make. We did move forward with our autism program with Miami-Dade. And we launched it through the social media campaigns. Unfortunately, we will not be able to issue those decals out, but we will help any residents with it because when they issue them out through the county, it's actually put into their dispatch center so that if there are any 911 calls, it can be dispatched to EMS and fire while they're en route, that there is that possibility. But we are going to be pushing it out. We got the QR codes and we're going to help in any way to get that information out as fast as possible.
If you can share to the commission what that would look like then. I'm not sure I understand then how the campaign would work. When you mean
Yes,
the
ma'am.
QR codes and all of that. Okay,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate that.
Not a problem. Oh, so what happens is there's a QR code that any resident can scan. They fill in their information and they request that a decal is issued out. The decal at that point can go two ways to the resident. They can either pick it up at any of the Miami-Dade police departments or it'll be mailed out by Miami-Dade. So what Miami-Dade also does is during that process, when they register all that information, they log it into their computerized dispatch center. So if any calls come out at that address or concerning that person, it will alert the first responders that are going that that person does have a autism or in the spectrum or any kind of if there's any other notes that they want to give, it will provide it so that the first responders are a little bit more aware on the response that they might be dealing with that situation so they can adjust their response accordingly. But we can help them. Any of the residents that want that kind of service or add it into there, we can go there, get them the QR code, help them walk them through the process. It's just the county won't give us any to issue out because it has to go through their logging system.
Okay, so we can put that information out so residents know that that will be the process to participate.
Yes, ma'am. And we've already launched that through Facebook, Instagram. I'm not sure if it went on Nextdoor yet, but we've already started pushing that out with the coding and we have it at our front desk also.
And if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Delgado was mentioning there is training to be given to the police force to actually activate sort of a specific response. Is it something that also you can tap into? Is it something that you already have that training to sort of attend to these emergencies and circumstances?
Yes, ma'am. We have coordinated with the court system, the Miami-Dade court system, and they're going to be providing free training for all of our personnel in crisis intervention teams. They call CIT. So they'll break it up so that we can send a few at a time, but every member will be trained for free through the courts. It'll be probably throughout a year process to get everybody through.
That's wonderful news. Thank you so much for coming back to me with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Chief, thank you very much for being here with us and offering some answers. I don't know, I think that there are no more questions at this time, so we'll go ahead and move on. So thanks very much, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Madam Clerk, any updates from you?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Manager, any?
I have a question for the clerk.
Sure.
So, Pamela, I shared a bunch of election information with residents. I did an email blast. People are very responsive to that. I had several people respond and say, I registered. People said I changed my address. They were very appreciative of that. Does the county provide anything to you, templates or?
They do, and it was my plan to have it all uploaded on our site this week, but I am swamped right now, but I plan to try to get it on before.
Provide stuff to you to help you with it.
Well, they don't provide it, but we have to go out and get what we need and
Okay. Any update on getting lobbyist contracts from other cities?
no.
Oh, okay. And then I think, I'm not sure if this is a topic for you or Brad or both, but again, we have board members who are new board members who have not been trained. I'm aware of some things they're doing that are kind of like, make me nervous.
I am aware. I have a date I have several dates to the Ethics Commission. They are going to send me the date that they are available, and then I will make that date available to the board members. It's going to come here.
That'd be great. And then commissioners could attend that too. Anybody could attend it.
I am putting it out to anyone who serves.
Awesome.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. All right, Mr. Manager, other than the report that you have, do you have anything else for us for your report this evening?
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay, commissioners, any commissioner questions for the manager on his report this evening?
I have some things, but I'm going to skip over most of them. Let me hit a couple really quickly. I saw in your report that the first wave of compromised trees were removed. Did you mean the pine trees or those other trees? I thought we did not get any Australian pines removed, but I saw in your report the first wave was removed. Not, maybe those are different trees?
No, that was while Director Penna was still here. That was the first wave of Australian pines, I believe.
Oh, okay, because it's on your manager's report for this month. The Bee House hearing, unsafe structure, I should call it. In your report, it says it's October. I understood that that was moved to November. I know they initially said I attended the hearing and they said they were pushing it back a month, but then Pedro told me it would not be on their October, it couldn't get on their October agenda, it would be on the November agenda. Have we gotten a confirmed date on that yet?
No, the information I had at the time of this report was that it was delayed a month. I was at that same hearing. So that's the information that I put on here.
Okay, might want to check with Pedro on that because he was very clear to me that it's November. Pamela's saying something. Oh,
I was saying that, at the time that we submitted the agenda,
Yeah.
that was the information that we had
Okay.
received.
okay. I just want to make sure that that date's made available to everybody. And then the ILA, the traffic. What's going on?
Right, I think you sent an email to the county last, didn't you?
I sent it,
Yep.
an email, I think it was last week.
Yeah, it was.
Sent a I think it was a week before, actually.
Yeah, they've become weekly.
I sent a follow-up email. I had sent what hopes to be the final draft of the ILA,
Right.
but I also asked a question, and they responded by answering the question, but never responded as to whether or not the form of the ILA was sufficient. So I sent them another email asking them if they could please advise if there's anything else they need from us with regards to the ILA, and they have not responded back. So I was going to actually suggest maybe that, Mr. Mayor, you could reach out to your contact in the county and
Yeah, that's fine.
see if we can get a status on that.
Certainly. Let me make a note and I will do that. Yeah, the emails have been a little bit more, less time in between the emails asking for updates about what's going on with it. So I'll make a note to reach.
Folks complain about it takes us forever to get things done. It takes forever for government to get things done.
Yes, it
It's
does.
a grind. It's a grind. Here we are at May, June, July, August, 6 months in, and we don't have that done.
Chris, do we have a timeline on selecting a vendor for the Safer Streets for All?
You? Chris, oh, there you go.
Sorry, my internet connection just cut out. Was there another question for me?
Yes, Commissioner, or Vice Mayor Huntington asked a question about the Safer Streets.
What is your question, sir?
Specifically, the timeline on selecting the vendor.
That should be selected within the next 30 days by the interim manager.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for the manager? Hearing none? Okay. On the wrong page. All right. I don't think we have the boards with us this evening. I know Janie's here, but I don't think we have any update there. So let's just go down to commission reports. So I will make mine very quick. The only update that I had, I just wanted to let everyone know that I went to the Coastal Mayors meeting in North Bay Village a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And there, Commissioner Steinberg informed me that the county had awarded us $118,000 to do the crosswalk down by the golf course to help us put in the necessary information and give us the lights and the crosswalk and everything. So I was very happy to hear that. I'm glad that seemed like getting out to the county made some real progress. So
I'm very thankful for that.
yes, it was really great news. I did reach out to her office. Her chief of staff person, Margie's on vacation. So someone had filled in and just said, yes, it was awarded and more information will come. So we'll know more as soon as she gets back.
Thank you very much for doing that. I actually left a message. No wonder I didn't get any feedback.
That's probably why.
Thank you. Awesome. Awesome news.
So I'll open it up for anyone else.
I have a couple. I'll jump in. I'm going to edit myself again. I met with residents who told me that they are trying to get a variance scheduled with us. And they went through the planning board, they went through the process, they paid their fees. This is what they tell me. And they said that was back in July. I asked Gage and he confirmed that back in July, they were turned down by the planning board. They should be coming to us. It hasn't been scheduled. They're getting annoyed that several months have gone by and their variance has not been scheduled. I emailed the village and I have not heard anything back. They were denied on July 22nd by the planning board.
I responded to you when you asked me about that variance.
Oh, that was regarding another one. That was the one over on 10th Avenue, the roof, and you told me how much it cost for them to get on. No, the other one I asked when it was being scheduled.
Oh, I don't.
Okay, so if someone could look into 971 Northeast 111th Street, those people have been waiting for a variance request since
Repeat the address, please. Repeat the address.
971 Northeast 111th Street. It's a variance for a gate. So they're getting rightfully impatient. I printed up, I got my sample ballot for November, so I printed them up. If anybody wants a sample ballot, and Pamela, you can take the rest. If anyone comes to Village Hall and asks for them, that's a handy thing for people to have because it lists all the referenda and all those other things on there that people like to research. I'm just going to say this, and it's not anything I'm going to ask us to correct right now, but we need to keep this in mind moving forward. I don't like to find out that the manager's not here by a third party. I found out today that the manager's not in the village. I didn't know. And the police chief's out of the village too. I want to know where the manager is. I want to know who's running the village. I don't think it's too much to ask for any manager to report to the commission, the body of the commission, all of us, not some of us, not one of us, not the one he runs into somewhere. But it's not asking too much for us to know where our manager is. If he's working, I want to know where he is. If he's not in the village, I want to know where he is and why. If he's taking time off, I want to know what kind of time he's taking off. So moving forward, guys, we need to manage our manager better. It's a little loosey-goosey for me when I'm finding out that days off were taken, that maybe I don't think they should have been taken. You hadn't earned vacation yet. Your contract says you can't take vacation. These things need to be managed better. That employee is ours to manage and we need to do a better job of it. But specifically, I want to know when the manager's out of the village and who's in charge. So there have been several instances recently. There's no manager in the village and I didn't get an email about who's in charge. So someone needs to be in charge of this village at all times. That's simply not acceptable to me in any way. I'm going to ask you guys for to approve something. I went to the Arts Board meeting the other day. I hadn't been to one of their meetings for a while. They're such nice people. They're working on all kinds of stuff for us. Something's coming up later in the agenda, but I had another idea and I said, hey, what do you guys think of this idea? Do you think this would be fun? And they thought it was awesome. And I said, well, I'll ask the commission if you can do it. It's not my decision to do. We had the event when Mayor Kava came here, right? And she got to mix and mingle with people and we had music and food and all kind. It was a social event for residents. A fraction of them got to engage with the mayor. They came for that, but they stayed for the party and they met people. I still to this day hear from people how much fun they had that night and how much they appreciated that taking place. I think we should do that periodically. And the opportunity I think that we should do it next is at our December commission meeting, same kind of setup. And the Arts Board said, if the commission wants them to do it, they'll take it on. It's not a big deal at all. Exact same kind of setup. And the reason to do it at the December commission meeting, it's kind of a festive time of year altogether, but we will be seating a new commission that night. So I know it's only a change of one person, but we will be seating a commission. We get sworn in outside, but I thought it would be a really neat opportunity for the 3 new commissioners to have a ceremonial swearing in outside. and Jonathan and Veronica, you would be there as well. People get to mix and mingle with all of us and just make it a fun social thing. People loved that. Maybe we invite the mayor of another community. Maybe we invite Mayor Desilmay to come swear in the new commissioners. Get someone else to come in and do it for us in a ceremonial kind of way. They can get basically everything for free. They said they have music lined up. There's someone else in the village now who wants to donate food for things like that. So if you guys like that idea, I'd like us to send a message to the Arts Board to have them coordinate that for us and make that a fun thing and invite the community to come out for the swearing in of the new commission and see your neighbors in December. Thoughts?
I am in. It's free and sounds like fun.
Sounds like fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
No cost to the village. It sounds great.
Can we get a fire truck there for the kids? Okay, so
That sounds
how
good?
would you guys like me to communicate with Natalia and let her know that
Certainly.
you okay? I'll just send her an email and say
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
commission likes it and go for it.
I think that's fine.
Veronica, you're okay with that?
I'm okay
Okay,
with that.
cool. Thanks. I'll take care of it.
We have any other commission report before we move on? No, okay. All right, so let's move on. We don't have anything in the consent, so let's move on with our ordinances. Our first is 10A. Brad, could you please read the ordinance under the record for us?
Yes, ordinance 2024-04, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending Appendix A, Part 3, Administration, Chapter 18, Construction of the Land Development Code of the Village of Biscayne Park by amending Section 18.1, Definitions, and Section 18.9, Limitations on parking of construction vehicles or construction employee vehicles by defining construction activity and clarifying the parking limitations for construction vehicles and employee construction vehicles, and by adding Section 18.5.7, signage required, which requires property owners to place specified signage on construction fencing, provided for inclusion in the code, and scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
I have a question before you do public comment. Brad, can you explain to us why we're seeing this at first reading again? We passed it at first reading 3-1 in September.
There was an issue with the version that you passed on first read. It was, if you all recall, this initially came to you as a discussion item, and you had made some significant changes to the ordinance. And when I started going back and making the changes that you all had suggested, based on the way you had modified the ordinance and changes, the original version had this amendments to section 16 of your land development code. And instead we put it in section 18 of the code because it made more sense. What you had on first read was the discussion item, not the one that
We
was
were
made.
considering the wrong item.
And it was kind of confusing when you were making modifications to it and making recommendations as changes to it. So I figured that it would be easier to bring it back on a first read so you can see the actual item.
Fair enough. That's why you were looking at me like I had two heads that night.
Yes.
Okay. Among other reasons, I'm sure. Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
we have a motion, a second. Okay, is there any public discussion or public comment rather on ordinance 2024-04?
Commissioner Kennedy offered it
I'm sorry, we had a second, right, okay.
and you seconded.
No, Vice Mayor Huntington,
Seconded.
correct. Okay, any public comment before we move to discussion? Seeing none. Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for public, for discussion, for the ordinance.
I only have one thing first of all, Brad, this is so much easier now. This is great. Thank you for that. 18.5.7, it says completion of construction. What does that mean? Does that mean a CO? And if it doesn't mean a CO, should we just say CO is issued? It just sort of sounds, it's one of those things that sounds kind of fuzzy around the edges because
Well,
somebody might think construction is completed and someone else doesn't.
Well, the construction has to be completed, which also would authorize the removal of the temporary construction fence.
And that's a CO does that, right?
That's my understanding. So in my
You satisfied with
my
that, Mike?
opinion, with the removal, where it says removal of the temporary construction fence,
Mhm.
that there is a specific
Triggering it?
trigger that causes that to be done.
You're okay with that language?
I am.
Okay, well, then I'll go with you. I did, when I read it, sometimes these fuzzy stuff kind of bugs me. And then separately from this, do we need to add the cost of the sign on the fee schedule?
No, it's not a fee. It's technically, it's technically not a fee. I guess we could.
Well, it
if
says
it's
on
worth
here,
it. Cost.
the cost shall be
Signage shall be
borne by the property owner, and that we provide it, so maybe it should be on the fee schedule, but we can't do that yet because we don't
You-
know the cost of it.
So we can do that by resolution at another time, once I know what the cost of this.
Like we're gonna do it later on tonight.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. That's all I have. Chris, what's the status of the sign? Have you started on that yet?
No, we have not.
Speaking of the sign, Brett, I have a question. So section 18.5.7 says that the sign will be provided by the village. How does this resolution tie the sign that Commissioner Kennedy had proposed with this to this specific, or how do we ensure that that's the sign that we're going to use?
So I had wrestled a little bit about whether or not I wanted to put the entire content of the sign in the ordinance.
Mhm.
And I kind of made the decision that I did not want to do that. Because this way, if the village wants to modify the sign in some way, shape, or form, you don't have to amend your ordinance. So the sign is, I mean, you giving staff, you being the commission is giving staff the direction as to what the content of the sign is, which you've already done in a previous meeting. And so that sign is going to be the only sign that this is referenced to. So, and it has to be provided by the village, so nobody else can put up a different sign. It's only the sign provided by the village, which you've already given direction to staff as to what is contained on that sign.
For the contents, but not the size.
Correct. I mean, I think the size is somewhat going to be dictated by the content.
For me, guys, it's the size, a 4-foot by 4-foot banner. It just seems overkill, and it seems like sign pollution, and we already have a lot of that in this village. And I'm not comfortable locking into a 4-foot by 4-foot banner. I'm more comfortable locking in a smaller sign or a pamphlet we hand out to a resident, but a 4-foot by 4-foot banner, if that's what this calls for, it's going to be a no for me.
Doesn't call for it.
Well, that's what we just said, that's what we gave direction to the manager, so.
Separate from this. This is just
So-
saying sign goes on the fence.
Okay, well, then I'm not comfortable with knowing what sign we're gonna put. If we're putting a 2-foot sign,
And we're
or
gonna go backwards.
I'm not okay with it. A 4-foot by 4-foot banner is huge. That is huge. And
It is huge. And the whole point is to get everyone's attention and make them notice it. You
Sure,
think
but-
getting a pamphlet out's gonna do it?
drive around to Miami Shores, El Portal, Miami Beach, do any one of those communities do this? That's a huge sign, and we
How about
have.
if we
a
do
lot-
something better than those communities? How about if we get you know what, guys? So everybody wants to complain about not getting stuff done, and here's another example of us gonna take a big giant step backwards. We had this conversation, we went through it ad nauseum. Line by line, word by word, got it translated into Spanish. Do whatever you want to with the damn sign. But here's the thing, you get ahead of a problem and you can keep a problem from happening. Our code manager stood here at this podium and she said, this is a great idea, do it. She knew how big the sign was. The point is to get people's attention. Then if you're not gonna make it something substantive, then don't bother doing it at all. It's just silly to.
This
to
is why
do
we
it
have
otherwise.
first and second reading, so we talk about this and.
No, actually, Ryan, this is why we had a discussion first. We had a discussion. That's how you do it. You bring it for a discussion, you hash it out. The attorney goes off and does his job. That's how it's done. That's why I didn't bring it to you as an ordinance. I brought it to you as a discussion. I laid it all out. We had a big conversation. I drew up a sign. We talked about it. We talked all the way through it.
Completely understand.
We're past that point.
Understand.
Okay.
But we're not, because it's not passed. And to me, a 4-foot by 4-foot banner is too big. It's
I think the purpose here is to get ahead of something, and that's a proactive way to get ahead of it. Otherwise, it's mealy-mouthed, and we're not going to get anything done. So if you intend to get something done, get it done.
I don't know what the best way to approach this would be. This is, being on first read. I don't know if we want to go back and we want to put in sizes, or if we want to do that because it's not in here, Brad, is this something that would be done with a separate resolution?
It's not even a resolution.
No,
You
it's
just-
staff.
You would
It
give,
Would just give
you would
staff
give
direction.
the manager direction. This is,
Okay.
this is what the sign is to contain. This is what the sign should look like. This is, size, or you can leave it to the manager to direct his staff
How
to make a sign that that contains the content that you want in the languages that you want. I mean, it's
This
a
is
lot,
merely
it's a lot of
requiring a sign.
content. I mean,
This is merely requiring a sign. That's all it is. It
How
doesn't say how
do you
big.
memorialize this to your word? I like the word memorialize. You
I like
taught
that
me.
word.
If I may jump in,
I use that
I'll
word a lot.
How do you,
specify
how
what
do you
that
do
sign
that?
should be.
Go ahead. let's-
Sorry, Mr. Manager, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If I can jump in, I would highly recommend specifying what that sign would be. There's too much of a gray area and too much disagreement. So the new manager needs to know specifically what that sign should say and how big it needs to be to meet your expectations.
I can certainly, if it's your direction, and I'm speaking to the commission, just so the record's clear, to add the size of the sign
Oh.
and the content
And
of
if it
what you want in the
changes, then we have
sign
to
in
pass
this-
an
in this
ordinance.
paragraph, but
No.
it's going to be long.
If it changes, if we change anything on that sign, then Brad's gonna have to bring another ordinance to us with 2 readings to change it. If it's in this ordinance and we change something, the size, a word, it has to be another ordinance to change the ordinance, correct, Brad?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
If
ridiculous.
you were to change, if the sign was 3x5 and now you wanted to make it 2x3,
We need a new
you
ordinance.
change-
Brad, how about this? If we add in the verbiage that this sign will be passed by separate resolution, that way we don't
It
have to use
doesn't
it.
even have to be a resolution. We just direct staff.
we can certainly do that if you want the sign to be.
That's overcomplicating things too. We simply,
I think that it doesn't.
That gives direction.
I mean, you
It gives
could,
direction, but I think it puts us kind of in the same position where we have a written formal adoption. If we want to just give direction to staff on a size, let's do that. But I don't know that we need to add it here for the purposes of what the attorney says. We don't have to change it. But if you want to talk about giving direction to staff on size, we can certainly do that.
have a separate conversation about that. Has nothing to do with this.
Listen, guys, I can get behind the sign.
Yeah.
I can get behind it like a political size, that's the standard size of a construction sign, but I can't get behind a 4 foot by 4 foot banner. It would
Ryan,
vastly outnumber the size of the other signs that are on
how
that.
big are the required contractor signs that are on these gates?
I'd have to look up the standard. I don't know, but like they're not.
That's the size.
4 foot banner.
Actually, what, Brad, can you pull that up? It's in the ordinance, it's in the sign code. It's required. It's required a minimum size of those signs. And that's an advertisement for a contractor is really what it is. It's an ad for a contractor and we require it to be a minimum size. He'll tell you how big they are.
I mean, I'm not saying precluding the discussion about the size. As far as the ordinance goes, I mean,
Doesn't need to be.
I mean, I don't know that we're disagreeing about the ordinance. I think we're just disagreeing about right.
We've already given direction to staff, then.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
That's why I asked Chris, what have you done? He said nothing. So there's your answer.
Oh, good point. It hasn't been worked on. It hasn't been printed. They don't have a stack of them over here in Village Hall ready to go.
So,
Go ahead.
if I may, so it's 12.2.3B of your land development code. And essentially the sign is not to exceed 3 square feet in area and 4 feet in height. So let me do that again. 3 square feet in area and 4 feet in height. Fixed to posts not to exceed 1 inch by 1 inch in size, which you're not going to do because you want this on the fence itself. And no less distance than 5 feet from the property line.
So not to exceed 3 square feet in area. This sign would be 16 square feet in area.
Ryan, it's not in this tonight. We don't
I
have,
understand, but that was the intention, was for that sign. And so I'm saying I don't support that.
okay, then don't support it when it comes back. Then bring it back for conversation and
But we-
don't
but
support it. But
you-
right now, it's an ordinance that has nothing to do with that. It's not.
Understand,
dictated.
but Brad just said that we had already given direction to staff. So as long as we have not given direction to staff, and we still have that conversation.
Chris just said
then
he
I'm
did
okay.
nothing.
Can I-
It's on
can I-
next week.
Can I make a recommendation so we can try to go forward? I think we agree with the ordinance. I don't think there's any disagreement there. What I would entertain, Ryan, is what you're saying is at a minimum, a discussion to have the size requirements and the direction to staff not exceed, what we already have here. I'm not saying we do that now, and I'm not saying that's the direction now. I'm saying we can have that discussion, and I would be happy to have that
Our
discussion.
interim manager
Works for
will
me.
probably, because this is something that person can probably do. 'cause
Right,
It's a order through.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I think that to the vice mayor's point, I think it's a discussion that has merit and it's worth talking about. I want to focus on the ordinance itself, which you know, to be fair, it doesn't have that information. I would entertain that discussion, certainly, absolutely, wholeheartedly. 4x4 is certainly a big sign, so we can talk about that. But for the ordinance, I'd like us to just focus on,
Then for the ordinance, then yes, I will, as long as we're having that discussion at a later time.
certainly. Okay? Are there any other discussion points on the ordinance itself? Hearing none? We roll on this one, Madam Clerk, right? Okay, thought so. Could you please call the roll, please? Thanks. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Groff,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Huntington,
Yes.
Commissioner Amsler,
No.
Commissioner Holland, Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
The item passes on first reading, 4-1.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, so let's take a look at our ordinance 10B. Brad, could you please read this one as soon as you are able?
Ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending the Biscayne Park Land Development Code, Chapter 16, Permits and Certificates, Section 16.15, Landlord Permits, to comply with Section 83.425 Florida statutes, providing for inclusion in the code, and scrivener errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for repealer, and providing for an effective date.
Brad, thank you. Do I have a motion on the ordinance in a second?
Motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any public comment on the ordinance before we move to discussion? Yes? Is the cost of the permit in this? No. Yeah, separate, when we're getting to. Okay. So none here, none on Zoom that I can see. So let's go ahead and let's open discussion on the ordinance. Floor is open.
And just one note, where 16.15.11, that paragraph is struck through. The actual paragraph number didn't strike through, but that will be struck through on the actual version.
16.15.
16.15.11 here, it just didn't strike through the whole thing. But the whole paragraph will be struck through.
11.
We're in discussion, correct? We're in discussion.
Yes.
I know it's going to come up, and I know the fee's not in here, but maybe Brad, can you just provide some clarity now for the overall discussion? The fee has to represent our actual costs. We can't make money on the fee. It just has to be what our administrative costs are, right?
Otherwise, it becomes a fine. So yes, you have to, and there has to be some justification. So you have to have some basis for imposing that fee.
And Chris, this question for you. We've confirmed that that is our administrative cost, $25?
Correct.
I believe that was the cost of the landlord permit, of just the permit itself. How much was the permit? No, I was told. it's 20.
Yeah. I was just actually going to ask if we kind of jumped.
So I unfortunately can't hear what's going on in the cabin, but we arrived at that fee based on the number of hours it takes to enter. The number of hours we assume it will take to enter a permit into the system, based on the lowest paid person capable of doing that job.
It's, Chris, that's part of the, an item that we're going to get to in the resolutions. So we're just a little ahead of the game, but we'll get to that. Right now, we're just talking about the language for the ordinance. Okay, so are there any questions other than, I know Brad answered about 16.15.11. Are there any questions about the language for the ordinance? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Groff,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Huntington,
Yes.
Commissioner Amsler,
Yes.
Commissioner Holland, Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
The item passes 5-0 on second reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So now we will move into the resolution, which is the corresponding item. Our next item, 11A. Brad, I'm trying to give you just a second to get there. So Brad, would you please read 11A, Resolution 2024-33 for us?
Yes, sir. A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending the schedule of fees for services provided and regularly charged as specified by Village Code, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Brad. Do I have a motion and a second to move to discussion?
Motion to move discussion.
We have a second. All right, so we'll open for discussion. And I think the last item we just talked about is sort of still on the table. So we'll go ahead and start there.
I have a couple of things before we get to that.
Sure.
I would like some explanation about how we got to that number.
Okay.
The building administration fee is $40, and I'd like to understand how that's twice as much work. So I'd like to understand a little bit about those two items. There are two versions of this, the old version and the new version. They don't necessarily align. So I got very confused, and I hope we didn't lose anything in translation. When I look at the one from February of 2023,
It was a mistake on my part. So, you're talking about the
the fee schedule.
fee schedule. It actually had vacation rental instead of, it had the vacation rental fee as opposed to the landlord permit. That was my error. So I corrected that.
There are typos all over this thing. When you read it, it's just kind of ridiculous.
Talking about the exhibit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the fee schedule itself. It's just a mess.
It-
There's
I
a,
think that's the way when it gets uploaded into your system, because they were not, I spell checked it when
no, I understand that. We've heard this before, that it's a glitch in something. I don't know, but we need to figure out what that is. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing to have a document like that on an agenda. There's typos on the new section of the short-term rental heading. Let me try to get it open up here.
You know what?
Short-term rental, where is it? It's pretty far down, I think. Where is it? Does anyone know where short-term rentals are on here? Building. Oh, it was on here before.
That was the
Old one.
yeah, I took that off because it wasn't on the original fee schedule.
Okay, unrelated to this topic, where is reoccupancy on this?
I used the schedule that was provided to me, so I can't.
We have a reoccupancy. How much is it, Linda?
$175.
Yeah. That was on here in a previous version, so I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone now. I think we need to look into that, because that's something that we charge on a regular basis. No, it's reoccupancy. Yeah, for sale. Yeah. Are there, should this, are there late fees to consider or anything other than the flat fee, Brad?
You could do a late fee, although if they don't, if you remember, the way the ordinance is worded, if they don't register, then they're subject to a potential code violation, and do they have a code citation issued?
A late fee.
They would go before, they would have to, so there would be, instead of having the late fee, there's basically fines that can potentially impose for not registering.
Okay, so then that comes down to the price. I mean, Linda at the last meeting shared with us what other communities are charging, and some of them are, much, much higher than ours. And I'm not suggesting that we should charge more just because we can, because we're not allowed to, quite frankly. But I would like to understand how, I think it costs more than $25 to have someone answer the phone at Village Hall. So I'd like to know how this number came about, when the building administration fee is $40, and I'm not certain what that does, and that's the other little one in here. So it seems to me maybe this isn't jiving.
Chris, can you, just one more time, because we kind of rushed through it since we were on the ordinance. Can you just provide us the information again on how we came to that number?
Yep, we looked at how much it would cost to have the least paid person enter that information into a database. That's how we arrived at the $25.
Is this an hourly rate? So you're applying, so how many hours are you calculating?
I believe we went, I have to look back at my notes. I think we went for a 30-minute maximum.
All right.
Where is the building administration fee on here? I'm looking for it now. Is it 50 now?
So Linda's saying it's 50 now. So how can it be less? That it will, you know, we've kind of gone through increases in salary, nothing in short.
The thing to keep in mind is this is a landlord registration. This is not a permit. This does not include any additional labor. This is just entering information into a database. So the commission, you're free to set, well, within reason, set whatever fee you'd like to set. And saying this is the minimum cost for entering that information into a database.
So when we have a permit, is this based also on an hourly fee, or is it, I'm sorry, an hourly schedule, or is it a fee, a flat fee, the $50
All permit fees should be based
on the hourly rate?
Correct, the actual dollar amount for the least paid person to do whichever work is required by the permit.
But I will add is when you're talking about a permit fee, you have an application to obtain a permit to do something. There is a review process of the application, which would add an additional time to the processing. Whereas we've done away with the application for a permit when it comes to this landlord situation. And so so what the fee is directed towards, it's essentially, as the manager said, data input. There's no inspection, there's no review, it's data input of the information that's required to be submitted. I'm not advocating for one fee over another, I'm just explaining the difference between an application for a permit and registration.
And we had a little additional input, Janie.
Chris seems to be emphasizing just filling out a form, entering into a database. Isn't there also, and Linda, please correct me, the potential for discussion with the person coming in to fill the form, phone calls, follow through? I'm just not seeing how the only thing being done is entering information into a database.
So in case there's some additional work to be done, what were you going to say, Linda? You notify every. Send a letter to every resident that has one to remind them. Got it. I see. So there's an additional cost.
That's the point I'm kind of trying to make, is that it's not as simple as you've got a data entry operator sitting at a desk and just typing in info. You've got follow through and phone calls and whatever else is going on. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris, when it comes to the formula itself, is this something we're imitating from another municipality, sort of taking the average time that it takes, this process, like how, or is this your sort of, who give you the feedback to do it this way?
This is based on my 20 years of experience entering information into a database. This is a new process. This is a new, it's not even a permit. This is just a new registration. So we don't have any historical documentation. We don't have any additional municipalities that are doing this or have been doing this for years. So this was our best guess at how much time it would take to enter this information into a database and how many dollars that time would cost. So again, if the commission wants to set the fee higher, that's completely up to you. The formula that we used was to set the minimum required.
Yeah, no, it's just, it seems that your staff as well, there's some sort of trying to understand how this number becomes so low, knowing that the process might be more complex than that. So again, this is presented by you. My question was, is it someone internally guiding you as to also take it this way, or this was just you coming up with a formula?
This was me determining how much time it takes a reasonable person to click the keys to enter this information into a database.
I know, but I'm saying, did you just double check this time with staff? Was that process done with staff to understand if it's 2 hours, half an hour?
No, I didn't poll the staff to ask them how much time it would take them to enter something into a database.
Okay, so I think that's where we're trying to get. So clearly there is a contradiction as to what, it seems to be the staff is saying that it might take. So
Chris, were you aware that they
25
sent
is-
out a letter in advance of this and do the other things that Linda was just describing to us?
The
Did you
fee
take
is
that?
for registration.
Say that again?
The fee is for registration.
Well, the registration starts with an outreach.
Again, if you want to set it at $5 million or whatever the commission chooses, go right ahead. As I stated, the job was to come up with the lowest amount that it would take to enter this information into a database, and that's the dollar figure that we gave you.
I think $5 million is excessive, but I think $40 to kind of match the other one that sounds similar in here might make a little more sense, because now we've learned from your staff that there are some additional steps that take place. Can I just put forth that we change this to $40? and we
You
can move
beat
on?
me to the punch because I was just gonna say, based on what we're hearing, there's some additional time and some additional effort. So let's go ahead and let's increase it. So we'll increase it. We can go up. I think $15 is reasonable. If that's, we have some
it's
some
really,
maybes.
no, but like there is really, we're just pulling this number out of our heads.
Well, it's.
Well, that's not also true. So, I mean, if we want to approve something, we approve what we have with the contingency of reviewing as soon as we have a manager in place to meet with the appropriate staff to gather what the time should be. I don't think we could be like 40, 60, or 100. I mean, this is as part of the manager's role to sit down with staff to understand how much this takes. If we don't have that, either we don't approve it today or we approve it with the condition of.
I understand what you're
reviewing.
saying, and I understand
always
the
change it.
divide between where the information came from, what Chris is saying, and the additional information that we're receiving. I think, but based on what we're hearing from staff, I think you're right. We're just kind of pulling a number. I agree, but there's nothing to say that if we were to increase it because there's some additional time and effort that we're hearing, it doesn't stop us from reviewing it at a later time too.
Well, I know, I understand that. I just thought it had to do with analyzing how much time there is, the lower side. I mean, there is a formula to follow. So, just saying it's 40 or 60,
Yeah.
then we're breaking the formula down. That's all I'm saying.
Sorry, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
maybe just to shed some light on this. So with part of the analysis, if you have another process that is similar in nature, my New York accent's coming out, in nature, you can base your determination on that similar process. If that, I'm assuming that cost was vetted when you came up with that cost of that similar process. And so you could base it on that if that's what you decide to do tonight.
Just make up a number, you're saying.
I'm not suggesting you make up a number. What I'm saying is if you have a similar process that you're already implemented and you've established that cost was
Commensurate.
commensurate with the work done on a similar process,
Listen,
then you can use that same fee
yeah.
for this particular process.
got it.
Okay, that makes sense. How much? What's that? Okay, before the law changed, you couldn't do inspections. Uh-huh. People that could not have inspections, the base fee was 50. So without the inspection, it was 50. With the inspection, it was 90. Okay. Okay.
And are this rates based on, again, on hour and time, based on salary? It's the same thing. It's. Yeah.
Okay. So we've done it this way and we've had it at 50. Okay, I was just making sure you didn't need to say anything. That's a different process.
I'm happy voting on 40.
Yeah, I just, for the sake of, I mean, you know, we're talking a difference in $10. And I understand, I completely understand what you're saying and the process behind it in the kind of established way that we come up with this. 25, I understand where Chris came from. This is the minimum amount he determined, but there's some additional processes in place. I think 40 is appropriate, and I think that we can readdress it if we need to. But I'd just like to get a number in so we can get going.
Making a motion to,
As amended to 40, amending the exhibit to 40.
making a motion to approve amended to 40.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's a resolution, so it's a majority vote. Are we all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I mean, processes are out the door today, so why not say yes?
Seem to be out the door a lot, Veronica. I'm with you.
So
Okay,
everything.
Speaking of processes,
all right,
talk about something a little more heavy, guys.
all right. So on our amended agenda, 12A is still first up, so let's go ahead and open with 12A. Commissioner Kennedy, I believe this was yours, correct?
Yeah, this was mine back in
Okay.
May, I believe,
Yes.
when all of our police drama was fresh. And I wanted a conversation here with us, with the manager and the police chief, both of whom are here in the meeting, about what happened here. So the long and short of it is that something really bad happened in our police department for the second time in 10 years. The first time a police chief ended up in prison with some other officers, if I'm not mistaken. And this time a police chief was basically shown the door. Okay? He resigned, to be clear, but it wasn't pretty on his way out the door. He was put on administrative leave. There was an investigation done. While that investigation was going on, our police chief decided to leave his position with the village. It was ugly for the residents. There were some very sort of ugly allegations going around about police. Residents have a right to believe that their police are fair and honest. And fair and honest police have a right to know that residents aren't questioning their motives and what else they're up to. There are bad cops in the world, and I don't want to say we had bad cops here in the village because our attorney will probably yell at me if I said that, but it certainly seems that there were some things that were not done well here. And Brad, would it be fair to say that as a result of some procedures not being handled well, there were some police officers hired who maybe wouldn't have been hired or shouldn't have been hired?
So I believe that based on the findings of the investigation, is that there were certain police employees that were hired that may not have met the criteria for hire based on the policies and procedures in place at the time.
These were our internal policies and procedures. So we had policies and procedures in place. They were not followed, and there were people hired who did not meet the minimum qualifications for the job.
When you say the minimum qualifications that were established by the village.
Yes,
By the
Yeah,
village-
by our
by
policies.
police department policies, correct?
And were some of those officers then terminated when this came to light?
I would have to defer to the chief and the manager. I don't know that officers were terminated as a result of the investigation that was done into the hiring practices. I don't recall, but I think
So what did some of these police officers do that were objectionable?
so. I think it was more looking into their backgrounds with regards to either previous employment and how they either separated from their past employers.
Mm-hmm.
As well as some review of just previous conduct of some of the employees.
Well, while they were employed here, did any of them do anything that violated our policies?
I would have to defer to the chief and the manager.
Chief?
I believe so.
I'm
There were
specifically
some-
referring to the issues with an evidence locker, some other behavior.
Yes, sir. There were several that did have some misconduct that did take place while they were employed here. One of them with the evidence, the administrative portion is done, so I can discuss that. I have to be very careful because we still do have a meeting with public corruption on Tuesday on the criminal aspect of that. So I don't want to go too far into the criminal aspect. But there were several that were terminated due to failures to meet our probationary standards or since that period of time. But we have conducted several internal affairs investigations that indicate that there were violations while they were here at the village.
Okay. So no one
I
wants
had-
to hear that, but guys, that's really the long and short of it is that our own policies here were not followed in terms of background checks and how these folks were hired. And while they were here, some untoward things happened. And we had policies in place that would help head that off from happening by not hiring them in the first place. Here's my concern. When something like this happens, it can very easily be swept under the rug and say, oh, our new police chief won't let that happen again. And this is Chief Steele, I'm not saying anything about you personally. You know that.
Yes, sir.
But we need to know as a community that talk about SOPs, Veronica, these are really serious things, these background checks. And the things that happened as a result of these people being hired here in the village and be given a patrol car and a gun and a badge and told to, enforce the laws here. We need to know that this is all being done properly moving forward and that we won't allow it to happen again, because it sounds like, well, Brad, you just as much as said, don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said our own policies were not followed in this regard in terms of the background checks, correct?
Correct.
And that falls on, and whose responsibility is that? The police chief.
It's the chief and to some extent, the manager, to the extent that the manager does the hiring. So
Does the final authority on hiring everybody.
that, I know that, at least from Chris's perspective, from when I talked to him about this process, and Chris, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but before he approved the hire of a police candidate, that he was looking at the actual file and the background file himself, which I think
Which is appropriate.
good practice.
Yeah, which is appropriate. So good on Chris for doing that. So guys, here are my two significant issues with this. We all received an email, Ryan and John, you wouldn't have received this. You weren't on the commission at the time. Were you? You were. We received an email when this all went down and the new police chief was in place that Chris opted to not perform background checks on the officers that didn't have background checks, had background checks that were not thorough, that were not signed off on properly. There are a bunch of background checks on police officers in this village that did not meet our policies for performing those background checks. And Chris told us his plan was to not perform background checks on those officers until they were up for a promotion or facing some kind of corrective action.
Mr. Commissioner, can I chime in real quick on that? We actually just sat down with Sweetwater on Friday because of their similar history in the past and some of their processes with the backgrounds and their hiring. And we got a little bit of guidance and direction from them and with FDLE because there's certain procedures in once they're there and they're off of their standard of probationary standards. But at this time, with the guidance of some of our neighboring police chiefs and other agencies, we are going to be conducting a review of all personnel files and their backgrounds and conducting almost like a mini background. Now, unless it comes up that they lied in the background, it's going to be, other than possibly reserve personnel, a little bit harder for us to take action. That would be something we would have to get with the village attorney, Brad, with and go forward. But what Sweetwater did in a similar predicament, because we have been working this as kind of a sensitive area on how we can proceed with it. But what they did is they went ahead and typed up a memo and put all the facts in on the background if there was areas of concern, and they documented it. We would have to get with our legal on what we can and cannot take action on. prolong on how long they've been here.
So what I think I just heard is you're moving forward and going back and crossing Ts and dotting Is on the backgrounds of all of your officers?
Yes, sir. That
Or
is a
only the ones
process
that were hired during former Chief Cabrera's
every single
tenure?
personnel. Yes, sir.
Everybody.
Every single
Okay.
personnel, we will be reviewing their backgrounds to actually have it on the very top part to talk about with you guys tonight.
What made you, Chief
Um,
Steele, what made you decide to do that?
Just with the backgrounds that we saw, so this, a lot of this all started with the implement once the manager got here, any lateral or movements within the police department at all, because he is the ultimate hiring and firing decider, he wanted to start seeing backgrounds or the folders on everyone. And the previous manager did not go to that extent to review. And that's what raised a lot of these red flags, is when we started looking at some of these personnel files that had some very concerning or absent information in it, or just not signed, not reviewed. There's a lot of discrepancies. That's what kind of led to this. So with all of that, with the termination of the termination of the officer last week, we've decided that as a police department, we need to move forward with kind of vetting and making sure we had the right people. So we are in the process. We've just been working with other agencies that had similar issues and making sure we do it the right way. So it holds
Okay,
up.
you just dropped something. Why was there an officer terminated last week?
Failure to meet probationary standards.
Here we go again. So Chief, is this a practice that you're going to suggest that the new manager carry over as well when we hire a permanent manager? Is this something that you think should be policy moving forward, that all the background checks are done and that is in the file that the manager uses to approve the hire?
Yes, sir. At this point, our operating procedure with the department, since the manager is the ultimate hiring and firing decider, is they need to see all the facts. So at this point, all personnel files will go to them for review prior to us making movements or hiring or
Okay,
terminating.
I am very, very happy to hear that. That seems like such a common sense thing to do. I can't believe it's some major shift in the department that would have to be decided to be done. We received an email from Chris, our manager, saying that he was not going to perform backgrounds because he didn't think it was necessary. And he said he said the attorney advised him that he didn't have to. And when I talked to Chris about this, he said the attorney told me I didn't have to. And my
I
opinion
think there was a, I think there was
legally
some
you don't have
discrep-
to, but it
Right.
doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So that was the
Yes, sir.
conversation I had. That's neither here nor there now. My other concern is this. So Chief Cabrera was here and he was running the department, and the background checks were not being done properly. They're not being signed off on properly. There's lots of problems with background checks, and it led to all of this mess, and it led to him leaving. And Brad, you just told us that what he did violated our policies, correct?
There were some potential policy violations.
Okay. Then here's the other problem I have, guys. I don't know if you're familiar with this form. It's a form that's filled out and sent, and Brad, if I mischaracterize this, please step in and explain it. It's a form that is filled out by a municipality when an officer leaves, any officer or the chief, Brad?
Sworn off.
Any sworn officer, when they leave, and it talks about the reason for their separation from the municipality. And there's a box that's checked on here. There are lots of boxes that you check. And one of them says voluntary separation not involving misconduct. This is the FDLE form filed for our former police chief, who was on administrative leave while an investigation was taking place all over the news. And by the way, that's how our residents found out about it, from their television, not from this village. And this form says that it was a voluntary separation, which it was. He resigned, correct, Brad? It was a voluntary separation, not involving misconduct. It's the not involving misconduct part that really rubs me on this, because it seems to me there was misconduct. There were policies that were not followed by this police chief. And as a result of them not being followed, there were people hired who shouldn't have been hired. And then some of those people went on to do things here that violated our policies. It seems to me that is the very definition of misconduct. And our police chief, it sounds to me, engaged in that kind of misconduct. And this is something that's filed at the state. Okay, this is a legal document. It's signed by Chris, it's notarized, and this village is informing everybody that this person left he left voluntarily and that there was no misconduct involved in his separation. I take exception to that. Brad, can you tell us who sees this form and uses it for what purpose?
The form is sent to the FDLE's Professional Standards Division. So it's recorded by, it's kept as a record by FDLE.
And who has access to that? It's a public document.
Anyone who asks for it.
So if somebody were to want to hire a police officer, is this something they might go search out to see? They could.
But I will add to, just so it's clear, the police chief doesn't hire. The manager in place is who hires police officers.
Understood.
So I don't necessarily take issue with the way the form was filled out. I'm not going to get into the discussions that were had with Chief Cabrera's counsel and myself and some of the issues about the investigation and some explanations that he presented or offered. But I will say that ultimately, as Chief Cabrera indicated, the ultimate decision to hire these individuals to work in the village was in fact on the manager. And I should say the manager at the time.
The manager at the time.
Not throwing any dispersions at anybody, whatever information they had, whatever process they used, they believe that was the appropriate process. As Chief Steele has said, that the process has changed to the extent that and I don't know what was necessarily given to the former manager. When this chief came in, he specifically, or I'm sorry, when this
manager,
when Chris came in, he specifically, as you heard, wanted to see the entire personnel files, not just a written recommendation from police saying we recommend a hire, and that's where
I understand that the ultimate authority is the manager, but the former police chief did not follow our policies and procedures when doing this, and it resulted in what it resulted in. And it seems to me that misconduct did take place because he didn't follow our policies and procedures. That's my read on this. I don't like this at all. I find this is a really bad look for the village, quite frankly. There's a lot of bad in this for the village. And I'm very happy to hear that the chief has new policies in place and that he is now going to go back. I'm very surprised to hear it because I asked about this several times and I was told, no, it's not happening. So I'm very happy to hear that for whatever reason, that got turned around and now these are going to be done. Because as I said before, residents need to be confident in the police. And we live in a world where we're seeing lots of examples of people to have legitimate reasons not to be confident in their local police force. And police need to be confident in that too. They need to be confident that they're working alongside competent, professional people that have the best ethics. They don't want to be viewed by anyone as being a bad cop. And when all of this stuff happens, it calls into question all of them, not the one or the two or the three that got in trouble and the one that was fired last week. It calls into question all of them, and that is not fair to the police. So I'm really glad, Chief Steele, that you're taking care of this. To be clear, guys, Chief Cabrera still has an opportunity to do a name clearing hearing if he wanted to, if we wanted to invite him back here and have him explain himself, because he still says he did nothing wrong. And now we're all receiving these emails with that person who's sending the emails is another person. Brad, am I correct that no longer was a police officer in the village and no longer works here?
I'm not sure what emails you're referring to. I know some.
Gentleman who spoke in public comment tonight.
Some of the emails that you got that I know about was the gentleman that spoke during the 5 o'clock.
He's a former officer. He's one of the ones.
He was not a police officer.
He was
a civilian background investigator. So he was doing.
He did the background checks.
His son was actually a sworn officer with
one of the ones that was terminated. Okay. And now you're all seeing the emails coming about other allegations and whatever. That's, he can produce evidence to whatever he wants to produce. I just wanted that all out in the open because I don't like the feeling of things like that being swept under the rug. That looks like something really bad is going on when you just kind of slide past something like, oh, no, nothing over here, nothing to look at. It was bad. That's 2 times in 10 years this little teeny tiny village had something really bad go down with this police department. We cannot tolerate that. We cannot tolerate that kind of behavior, and we need to hold them to the absolute highest standards, and that needs to be something that we discuss with our incoming permanent hire for the manager's position, because we need to keep an eye on this. We cannot have a third opportunity like this. You Google Biscayne Park Police, go home and Google Biscayne Park Police and see what comes up. Just Google Biscayne Park and see what comes up. That's the first thing that comes up.
Chief, I have a few questions about these mini background checks. Have you been in consult with the police union to make sure they give advice on them? And are we giving our officers union representation if they would like it for during this process?
At this time, we have not reached out to the PBA. We're going through the standards and recommendations of what FDLE puts out there, their minimum standards and what they recommend us to perform in the background. So we'll be checking that. If there was a conflict that came up or any issues that we would have to move forward, of course, we would be give them the option to have their counsel or union representative there with the PBA. That would be a process, but we just want to at least go through and document and look at these backgrounds to determine if there is any big red flags or possible omissions or lies in the background. But we're not going to violate any officer bill of rights or constitutional rights. We just want to go through it and based off the FDLE curriculum, make sure that we are within standards of hiring.
Thank you, Chief.
So looking at the form that we have here in front of us and just kind of understanding the item, I want to be sensitive to the process. I don't mean to sound hypocritical by any means. I do want to be sensitive to the legal process because there are ramifications to that. I don't know terms of settlement. Those are not disclosed. Those are confidential, I would imagine. In terms of settlement or negotiation, separation, a lot of those things. I'm not really asking for you to get into the details because I just want us to be careful. That's all. So I don't know. I really don't know. We've heard from the chief. We've heard about what was done. We've heard about Chris having brought in a lot of the personnel files, doing a lot of background checks. We've heard now about the chief kind of making that even more robust, which is great. It's fantastic. Very happy to hear that.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's
the first time we heard that.
That's is a very good thing. And Chief, we appreciate you kind of taking the bull by the horn, so to speak. I'm going to open it up for the other commissioners if they want to comment. I don't know that I'm not sure if you're asking for any action or anything other than.
He took the action I was hoping to have us give some direction and make that happen.
And that's fantastic. I'm very happy to hear that. So I will certainly invite the other commissioners if they want to speak on it. I know Commissioner Amsler, you had a very similar item. So I'd want to give you the opportunity, of course, with that understanding.
No, I'm happy to hear that the chief already is taking care of it, so nothing for me further to say. This is a mess that we unfortunately had to see happen again in the village. Chief, I'm just happy that you're behind this and that you have the processes and checking with other municipalities as to what the standards should be and making sure they happen. SOPs in any department can be there and anybody can violate them. I mean, that's what's just happened in the police department. So imagine the rest of the departments, right? Administration, public works, I mean, you name it. The whole purpose of them is it's the captain of that. So Chief, thank you for taking the initial step towards better process.
And you can hold people, Vero, to add on to that, you can hold them accountable when they are in place. That's
the whole purpose of them. It's that you know what to do and then you know what happens if you don't.
Exactly.
Well, Chief, thank you for being with us and addressing some of the items that we were talking about with this discussion. If there's nothing further on the item, I'd like to thank the commissioner for bringing it forward and the commission for discussing it and the chief for being with us to talk. But let's go ahead and move on if there's nothing else. No? Okay.
Thank you.
So, sorry, Chief, what was that? I didn't want to cut you off.
I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen.
Great. Chief, thank you for being here. So on the amended agenda, the next one is all the way down to 12I, which is the Biscayne Park app signs. The remainder have been removed.
I'll push that to the next meeting. We're almost out of time.
Okay. Well, let's talk very quickly about 13C, I think, because that one I think should be pretty quick.
Yeah, that'll be really quick.
Go ahead,
So,
Commissioner.
we had, I brought this to the commission a number of years ago, and staff was supposed to take over at a certain point, and it didn't happen. We had Halloween and holiday decorating contests. People really, pull out all the stops here in the village at Halloween and the end of year holidays. That would include Christmas and Kwanzaa and, drawing a blank on the Jewish holiday. My God, Hanukkah. Yeah. So, I would like to get that, people really enjoyed the contest. And I would like to get that restarted. It was something that that staff and the commission did back in the day, and you can read my item. I'm just going to race through it really quickly. I went to the Arts and Culture Advisory Board and asked them if they would like to take this over, and they were gleeful at the idea of taking this over. So they were very, very, very happy. Had a nice conversation with them, and they're just looking for some direction from us to take over the contest. And they asked me sort of how it ran. I gave them this item and said, I'm taking it to the commission. And I'm going to ask the commission to either do it themselves, us, with staff like it was done before, or ask the board to take it if you guys are interested in taking over. And they said, yes, we would love to. And then the chair sent me an email again confirming it, that she confirmed that they want to do the event in December and also take over the awards for Halloween and the end of year holidays. So my question to you guys, do you think we should do it as a village, number one? And if so, do you think we should do it like we used to, or do you want to turn it over to the board?
Why do we want to switch it? What's the main purpose behind it?
Let the board do it. It's kind of their thing, arts and culture, fun.
They asked for us or?
Oh, I was at their meeting and I said, hey, I'm bringing this back to the commission. Would you guys be interested? And they said, yeah, we'd love that. So
Versus staff doing it.
versus us, though. Before it was us. We assigned judges, staff sent out emails. It was some stuff on the staff. They had to send out emails and get the judges to, Pamela, did it happen since you were here? No. We had I wrote the emails and I kind of did it for help staff do it, but this would completely take it off staff and us and just let the board do it.
I'm all happy not having staff involved in anything else.
Exactly. That was kind of my other ulterior motive.
I'm in for that.
Yeah. Okay.
And guys, I gotta run 10.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a yes from you, Commissioner Amsler. It's a yes, certainly for me as well. I know we did this before.
And I think it's appropriate that none of the board members and none of the commission, sorry, guys, can be eligible for awards. That would really, no, Ryan changed his vote.
That's all right. I'll still continue adding to the graveyard each year anyway. It's fine.
I mean, unless you guys think it's not a big deal, but I just think it's kind of not a great.
No, it's fine. That's fine. Look, I think it's a yes for me. If the board wants to take control and say, let them run with it. I'd like to see how they handle it and see what they do with it.
They were excited. They thought it was a really fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Pamela, I did say that the idea was that we would recycle these signs every year, and I know we did save them at one point. Do you have any idea where they might be? Okay. One of the board members actually won one year at Christmas, and she said she still has her sign because she said no one ever came to get it. The village was supposed to pick it up and they didn't. So she still has hers. So you may or may not find them, but might want to let them know if you don't have them, because we're going to have to figure out some signs. Not a big deal. Good night, Ferraro. Okay, thank you for that. It's just one of these nice things for the village. So it's
Yeah.
heavy stuff, it's fun stuff.
Definitely a yes. So that's consensus, I think, Madam Clerk. I know we got a couple other items here still. It's 10:01. The budget one's a big one.
Yeah, we're not going to get to that tonight.
No, unfortunately. And I certainly would want Commissioner Amsler's input
Absolutely.
input into that too.
And
So
I would actually like Paul and the new finance person to, I'll kind of open the item up real quickly. I would like Paul and that person to be here, so they're part of that discussion, so it's very clear what we're looking for, and have a conversation with them. I think it'd be a better conversation with them in the room.
I'd love to have that new person a part of it too. That'd be great. So I'm excited to have them here for it, all year and for this, especially for this. I think it's gonna make a big,
Can we ask Pamela to invite them?
saying yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, correct. It would be at the next meeting, Commissioner. In that case, so let's hold off on that. So we have Paul. Let me just get a quick point of clarification before we get a motion to adjourn. The items that we removed, are we placing them all on the next one, or are we just going to, at our discretion, ask that they be placed on?
I want mine on the next one.
Okay. You'll remove yours entirely.
Which one are you removing?
That was the outdoor one.
Oh, I was actually looking forward to hearing about that. No, I really wanted to hear that.
It's fine. We'll keep it on there and move it to the bottom. That's fine with me.
I mean, some of these things probably we won't get to anyway.
All right, so Madam Clerk, can I just run through these really quickly for you? Okay, so I have items 12B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. I should have just said B through I, so sorry. Then I also had 13A. And then B, 13B, 13D, and E.
Do anything tonight?
Oh, we had a lot to do with the manager, I think, so that took a lot of time.
And the grant took a.
And the grant, yes. So those were items not on this one, but they were on another one, but we got through those.
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, touching on Commissioner Kennedy's 13E, alternative revenue sources. 13E, or alternative revenue sources grants. I wish Commissioner Amesley was here to hear this, but I was approached by Miami Country Day, and they're very interested in being an alternative revenue source for us. There's an offer and an ask kind of thing. And I didn't invite them here tonight to present it to the commission because I knew there was no guarantee we were going to get to this meeting.
Yeah.
If we have almost a little bit of a guarantee that we can let them present, would we be comfortable inviting them to our next commission meeting to present that?
Can I ask you really quickly who it was?
It was Tim Walsh.
Okay, because we had previously been working with Tim on a community outreach board, which I hadn't heard. School started, so I hadn't heard anything from them on it. I don't know if you brought it up, but
That was different. It's completely different.
okay, I got it. I didn't know if it was part of that
Yeah.
because
But I'm sure it's a great
it
opportunity.
makes sense. But yeah, if they want to come and talk about those, I'd be welcome.
If anytime we have a guest here, I'm always in favor of nudging it up and
Like
letting
me
them.
to highlight their proposal to see if there's interest in it, or just say, don't waste your time.
No, if they're offering money, then I
Well,
would,
they're offering money for,
partnership
they're
of
asking,
some
it's an
sort.
offer for an ask.
Yes, that's fine.
Offer for an ask.
I would be interested to hear what they say. If everyone else, if the rest of the commission would be interested, then that sounds like a yes. We got 3 yeses.
The backup will be
Right.
on the agenda, so
I'll-
just make sure the backup's on there so
I
we.
think that it's really verbal. I don't know if there's really, it's, and it's something
Yeah.
that's not.
Right up.
That's what I was gonna say. I'll just put it on the presentation agenda, presentation portion, we'll put them at the top. And if they have some backup, they can send it to me and I'll get it to you guys. If not,
That would be great.
Perfect.
I always
Thank
prefer having something to read, even if
If
you.
he
just write
has,
something.
yeah, if he has backup, just ask him if he wouldn't mind sharing it. That would be very helpful. But yeah, that's great. That's great. I would love to have him come again. He was a good guest the first time. So, Madam Clerk, you have everything from my list? Okay, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Yeah. That adjourn.